Although the first official mission of the composters had been underwhelming, Wyatt was thankful that no danger lurked anywhere near the pirate vessel. After confirming that the planetoid was devoid of any marking or signals that could indicate a hidden base of operations, he reported back only for Commander Redford to recall them, as the boarding operation had been, in his own words, disgustingly one-sided. When his squadron landed, the last thing he expected was to see Captain Milcades waiting for him. Silence reigned between the two until they arrived at one of the large storage bays, where he encountered dozens of children and several adolescents huddled together under the careful watch of several Marines and auxilia troops. Wyatt glared and sneered, disgusted at the sight of the prisoners wearing little better than torn rags and poorly patched armor, suits, and clothes. "Children?" he asked loud enough only for Milcades to hear him as they walked past the prisoners. The freighter was full of children and adolescents. Very few can even qualify as adults, and the adults are being interrogated by Princess Clara herself, Milcades replied, stoic and direct. "That doesn't make sense. Even for pirates, sending out a bunch of children with barely any supervision sounds like madness," the pilot asked, as he once again glared at the prisoners. Their eyes reflected fear and hatred toward the men and women guarding them. "My thoughts exactly," Milcades agreed. "Their databases were empty. All we have is a jump log. They've been traveling for a month. Their starting jump point is from a system called Zint at the edges of Renshine territory. They stopped here to undergo emergency repairs. Their warp drive only had enough fuel to do another jump and were getting desperate." Wyatt frowned, regretting choosing to blow up the vessel without a second thought. "So they were escaping from something?" "We don't know. Come, Wyatt Staples, our princess waits for us," Milcades said, and continued to guide Wyatt to the other side of the storage area. Behind stacked boxes, he found Commander Redford, Cynthia, and Clara standing before three kneeling adults, 2 men and 1 woman, with illegal cybernetic augmentations visible through their gray eyes, a mechanical jaw, and the woman that had replaced her legs with cybernetic ones. All 3 of them were visibly afraid, but their hatred toward the nobles in front of them was greater. Curiously, he noticed that, despite their blatant disrespect, Cynthia didn't appear ready to take their heads. "We are here, my princess," Milcades announced as he took Cynthia's left side, and Wyatt stood close to Clara, filling the gap provided by Redford. Clara nodded once, and Wyatt felt a now familiar shiver run down his spine when he felt the cold, calculative, near-emotionless aura surrounding the princess. "I will ask again. Tell us who you are and why you are here. Do not test my clemency." Wyatt heard the man with the metal jaw growl like the rabid, unwashed animal that he was before he noticed something about their peculiar spot of interrogation. A quick glance to his left revealed that while they were hidden from prying eyes, their angle allowed them to see the other prisoners. They were also far away enough that only shouting at the top of their lungs would let anyone else hear their conversation. His attention shifted back to the 3 adults when he heard one of them spit at Clara. Reacting on instinct, he raised his right hand fast enough to block the spittle from impacting Clara's face. "Try to do something like that again and I'll order the death of one of your children. Do not test me further," Clara said once Wyatt lowered his arm. "You're going to kill us anyway, Aster bitch. We're not telling you anything," the woman barked back. "And yet you surrendered to my forces," Clara pointed out. "I fail to see the logic behind your pointless defiance and bravado." The man who had spit at her answered, "We thought you were normal Navy shit-stains, not a bunch of lapdogs led by one of you fucking tyrants. Would have blown the ship to pieces otherwise." The second man with the metal jaw snapped a bite at the princess, his metallic teeth producing an uncomfortable noise. "We'll die free, away from the clutches of the principality." "Strong words coming from a pirate," Redford replied as he stared at the pirates with nothing but loathing. It was as if the mere existence of the kneeling trio was an insult to his eyes. "Answer the princess. Who are you and why were you using a rust bucket with barely any fuel left?" "Fuck you, noble trash," the metal jaw man replied. "Why must you test me so?" Clara asked, eyes narrowing. "Captain Milcades is an excellent interrogator, but hardly a gentle one. Do you wish to discover what he, a Royal Marine captain, is capable of doing to you to make you talk?" The 3 prisoners flinched at the proposition, but said nothing. Answer my questions, and I will see to it that you will be imprisoned fairly and your crew properly tended to." Before the prisoners could argue back, she pressed on with a firmer voice. "Do not force my hand. Cooperate and you won't be harmed. None of you." "How many of us did you kill already when you boarded our ship, bitch?" the Spitman asked, glaring death upon the princess. "A loyal dog of the principality can't be trusted. A noble only speaks lies. An aster only drools poison. When someone doesn't want to live wearing the collar you have fashioned for us since birth, you kill them. Take your lies and choke on them." "This is getting us nowhere, my princess," Cynthia finally made her voice known. "These impudent beasts must be taught a lesson in obedience. Allow me to be their teacher." "Very well," Clara said, eyes cold and emotionless. "Decapitate 5 of their children, 5 more every time they refuse to answer me." "Demon!" the woman cried out as the 2 men fumed in anger. "You're no one to use the lives of others like so much trash." "I'm Clara Astor, second princess of the Astorian Principality. Nothing is beyond my reach," she said, nodding at Cynthia, who then unsheathed her sword and began to walk over to the young prisoners. She only made it 2 steps before the metal jaw man exclaimed, "Wait!" And Clara raised a hand, stopping her bodyguard mid-step. "Yes?" The man looked at his companions for several long, silent seconds until they dropped their heads in defeat. Will you spare the babies?" "Babies? Did they bring babies with them? Forget desperation. Whatever happened to them left them no other choice. Did a rival pirate gang or a syndicate try to destroy them?" Wyatt thought, surprised by the new information, and his glare softened. "As I've promised, they will not be harmed. As long as you answer my questions," Clara remarked, and waited for 3 seconds before continuing. "Speak." We're part of the Dominator Syndicate. A little over a month ago, we got attacked by Drazen raiders. We fought back, but they were too strong. Caught us by surprise. Before the boss's ship was destroyed, we took everything we could and fled, scattering in several directions. We don't know who else made it out, but our ship, as you can see, was chosen to carry out as many children, adolescents, and babies as we could before our home could be overrun," the man confessed. "Drazen," Wyatt hissed the word with hatred. "Do you believe that will garner you any sympathy from us?" Redford asked. "Drazen raiders attack anyone they expect to win against. A monster killing another monster. In my opinion, that makes the duties carried by the Royal Navy easier, pirate scum." "Damn dog!" the woman cried out. "You heartless animal!" "I wonder where you got your eyes from," Redford countered, glaring death upon the woman. "Did you at least wait until the one you stole them from died?" "Enough, Redford," Clara ordered, and the older man obeyed, though he didn't stop glaring at the bound prisoners. "Where were you attacked?" In the Ostenmark system," the metal jaw man replied. "So you had no plans of attacking weak stations for supplies? What were you trying to achieve with these teens and children?" Clara asked. The Spitman tried to kill the princess with his glare alone as he replied. We were going to attack the stations here, take any fuel and equipment they had and jump to the Hastrung system. There's a pirate den there, hidden. We hope to get refuge there, away from the Drazen and away from you, Principality whores." "I wonder how many innocent people you'd happily kill to get those resources," Wyatt asked, mirroring the snide remark the Spitman had made previously, whatever sympathy he gained for them when they mentioned the Drazen was gone after their revelation. "Fuck you, Astor lapdog," the Spitman replied before returning his attention to the princess. "As for you, that's all we know. You can torture us if you want, but there's nothing more we can tell you, tyrant." Cynthia's eyes glowed for a moment, and the next 6 Marines guarding the other prisoners made their way to them, saluting once they were a few meters away from their princess. "Take them away, put them in the brig, lock them up, and bring them a meal," Clara ordered. She closed her eyes for a moment, and suddenly several staff members pushing grav carts entered the storage room. As the 3 adults were dragged away by the Marines, the woman cried out, "What will you do to our babies?" "They are being inoculated, treated, and fed. That's all you need to know. My promise shall be kept," Clara replied, turning away from the trio. "Redford, Wyatt, a moment if you will." Wyatt and Redford obeyed while Milcades and Cynthia followed closely. giving them ample room to talk in peace. "Is this about the pirates?" Wyatt asked without an ounce of shame or regret in his tone. "Indeed. Redford, I can understand your hatred, but you, Wyatt?" she asked as they approached the children and teenagers who were being handed out fresh rations. They took it from the hands of the staff members and ate it greedily, but not one of them thanked them for it. "Clara, they're pirates," Wyatt replied as if that answered everything while glaring at the prisoners gorging themselves on the food provided to them. "You're wasting your mercy on them. Give me 5 minutes and I'll put a bullet in their heads and throw them out to space myself." Clara frowned but didn't admonish him for his answer. "Where does this hatred come from, Wyatt?" "While I would have worded my thoughts in a more refined manner, Clara, I too share Wyatt's sentiment," Redford replied, calling her by her name, indicating this was a serious personal matter. "Throughout the majority of my career in the Royal Navy, the enemy I've faced the most have been pirates, be them single-ship raiders, groups and gangs, or entire syndicates. To show them mercy is folly." Redford paused for a moment to look at the prisoners, then continued. "I must admit that my decision was rushed and derived from personal experiences, but I don't regret it. By their own admission, they were planning to attack the poorly defended stations here, steal everything they could get their hands on, and likely kill everyone stationed in them. Pirates are cowards who only prey on the weak and undefended. They may pretend to be freedom fighters, but they're nothing more than terrorists, anarchists, murderers, criminals, pillagers, and slavers. The fact that they are human is the sole reason they are a step above the Drazen, but even then I question it. They are dangerous, irredeemable, and must be dealt with accordingly. And they are a threat created by the Principality itself. I'm not judging your lack of compassion, both of you. I am merely saying that, had I followed your suggestion, we would be ignorant of this possible threat. Trust me, I am not feeding them out of the goodness of my heart. Once we arrive at Balakura, I'm handing every prisoner to the local authorities, and they will be dealt with by them. The mercy I've displayed is shown toward the babies who are innocent in all of this. They still live for this reason alone." Redford sighed. "Clara, you can't blame the Principality for their existence. Even the most controlling or idyllic government to exist will have to deal with people who go against it and wish to see it burn because of their conflicting ideologies. The Arabians, the Imperium, the Chinshu Commonality, and the Yikanti hierarchy. We all have different forms of government, and yet the pirate threat is prevalent. The only exception would be the Drazen Collective, but their pirates are our problem, not theirs, only due to how their physiology works. But the Principality could be better. The Royal Navy, for all its power and splendor, has failed to destroy the pirate threat, and now they will be prolific for as long as this conflict lasts." Clara sighed tiredly. "Be that as it may, their blood won't stain my hands. At least, not directly, and if I can help it. I'll let the proper authorities deal with them. This is my command." "Of course, my princess," Redford replied. "Good. Now, Redford, Galt has informed me that we are ready to proceed. Go, take the helm, and let us continue on our journey. Contact the nearest outpost and give the coordinates of the disabled freighter. It will be theirs to do as they please, and tell them to be wary of any odd movements in the system," Clara ordered, and the aged commander gave a salute. As he turned to leave, he patted Wyatt's shoulder twice and gave him a serious smile and a second-long glance. Then he left. Once the older gray-haired man was gone, Clara spoke up. "Would you be so callous as to look at them in the eye as you kill them, Wyatt?" "Yes," came the cold reply from the pilot. "Commander Redford is right. There is not a single Navy personnel that doesn't hate the damn pirates, Clara. Look at them. Look at their eyes. Even the youngest among them have nothing but hatred in their eyes. They took their rations and ate them without even thinking they could be poisoned. They're filthy animals that need to die." He paused for a moment. "Being attacked by the Drazen is a fate I do not wish even upon them, but I will shed no tears and spare no effort in saving any of them." "Please tell me you don't have a horrific close encounter with pirates that made you hate them so," Clara said, almost imploring that she was correct. "During my patrol duties, I destroyed a few of their fighters. It was the prisoners that told me everything I needed to know about them. That and the stories of veteran auxilia forces and merchants talking around Woodshaft." Wyatt pointed at the Marines and the Auxilia members watching over the prisoners. Look at their faces. The nobles look at them like they're vomit. But the Auxilia? If you think I hate them, then you need to look closer, Princess. Look at the faces of true odium. Clara focused on them and found that Wyatt was speaking the truth. If Wyatt's eyes were like flames, then the eyes of the Auxilia and even those of the staff personnel were like raging infernos compared to his. A large portion of her Auxilia forces were transferred from her brother's fleet, but the rest were made up of woodshaft recruits. Some had been mere merchants, dock workers, freighter loaders, and maybe militia forces, but the hatred was the same. Seeing that, she wondered how they were able to restrain themselves from just killing every single one of them despite her orders when they boarded their ship. They liked to raid weak stations, merchant and civilian ships, lone navy escorts, and the weak points on colonies. They take what they can, burn the rest, kill indiscriminately, and take as many captives as their pens can hold. They turn them into slaves, working them to death in their mines, farms, and hideouts. The kids and the babies? How many of those do you think were made by consensual partners? Wyatt asked. He knew he was laying it thick, and also that Clara was likely aware of their actions, but he had the sneaking suspicion that she had never been close to a pirate and the reaction they caused. Why would she? She was a princess. Things like pirating were only stories, propaganda, or video recordings at most. To them, I am nothing more than a cruel tyrant. My title, my power, my status, my prestige means nothing to them. I know they would kill me if I were at their mercy. I am not naive to their cruelty. I just never thought it could be like this, Clara replied, her voice distant. I know I am not free of sin, Wyatt. Forget about the adolescents. Would you really be able to bring harm to these innocent children without a second thought? If so, would you also kill the innocent babies? Innocent children? Wyatt asked, turning his head to face Clara. Clara, they're not innocent. Perhaps the youngest among them without a mark. All of them are murderers. The marks on their neck indicate they've killed someone through initiation. They are worse than mindless animals. They're pirates. They may not be Drazen, but the difference is only marked by their species. I won't harm them as long as it is your command, Clara. I vowed to protect the innocent if it is within my power. Ending the miserable life of a worthless pirate is protecting the innocent. But the babies? They are the most innocent of all. They will be protected. Clara nodded once, smiling. She remembered the words spoken by Uriel Holkes describing her favorite and personal pilot. He had been right. Wyatt was warm, kind, honest, and direct in everything he did. But now she could understand what Cynthia had seen in him. Wyatt was a cold-blooded, ruthless killer. For him, mercy against the wicked did not exist, but he'd put his life on the line for those he cherished and the innocent. It was hard to see his ruthlessness at full display, but he still displayed the soul of a true knight she'd seen in him. And he knew she had no room to judge him for being ruthless. Turning to him, her smile turned sincere, and her eyes relaxed upon meeting her friend's gaze. That is all I needed to hear, my dear Wyatt. Would you have done it? Carry out your threats? Wyatt asked, also relaxed and curious. She turned to the prisoners once more, but her tone did not change. I do not make idly threats, Wyatt. As you say, they are pirates, and lessons must be learned through force if necessary. I rather not use it if it can be avoided. My actions will not be blinded by reckless emotion. Not again. My princess, Milcady spoke after a few moments of silence. Perhaps we should look into the Drazen menace? They may just be pirates, but allowing the Drazen to gain a foothold could bring dire consequences if left unchecked. I have thought the same, Milcades. However, our duty calls first, and thus House Ferentis awaits. After we secure their cooperation, then my gaze can turn to their threat and decide our next course of action. Return to your duties, the princess explained. If so, since we were interrupted earlier, may I take Wyatt to the firing range? I wish to see his skill with guns myself, Milcades proposed. You may. Wyatt, go with Milcades, Clara ordered, and then moved to leave with Cynthia close to her. Once the two men were alone, Milcades tapped Wyatt's shoulder. Follow me, Lieutenant. Wyatt obeyed and followed the stoic captain. After a few minutes of walking, they reached an elevator leading to a different deck. Then the captain started talking. Heard that Cynthia is going to start training you on using an energy sword. I wish you good luck, Wyatt Staples. Cynthia is quite proficient in that field. I figured that much myself, Wyatt replied as the blender of motion that was Cynthia Winfield passed through his mind again. That memory etched into his memory firmly. Out of curiosity, how good of a marksman do you consider yourself to be? Decent enough, I suppose, Wyatt replied. I've always scored high on my target practice tests. Milcades hummed deeply. We shall see. What weaponry are you most comfortable using? Long, middle, close? As long as I can shoot it, I'm good. Oh, except shotguns. For some reason, I've never used them well. Sometimes they escaped from my grasp, hit myself with the butt, or the recoil made me lose my stance, Wyatt confessed without shame. Milcades didn't reply and didn't speak for the rest of the way until they made it to the rather spacious firing range. It was divided into 10 separate rows. Each one was several meters long with a hanging target dummy at the end of it, featuring a full-sized standing human. There were only 4 rows occupied by Marines, who paid them little mind as they were focused on their practice. Put on your helmet, Milcades ordered, and Wyatt obeyed. Opening a communication channel, he continued. Let's try the standard combat rifle. Pick one. Wyatt turned around to find a huge selection of weapons ranging from handguns, SMGs, rifles of various kinds, shotguns, and even a few laser guns. Picking up a battle rifle, he checked it, grabbed a magazine, and took the nearest row next to Milcades. Taking a familiar stance, he aligned the scope to his target and fired, hitting the dummy in the head, followed by the echoing clang of the bullet hitting its metal target. When Milcades didn't say anything, he kept shooting until his clip was empty. Not a single shot was a miss, and all but 2 of his 30 shots hit the dummy's face, the other 2 hitting its chest. Now use an SMG middle range, Milcades said, his tone portraying his stoicism. With the press of a button, the target moved closer. Wyatt obeyed, picking up a rapid-fire TY-8T model, standard issue for the Auxilia forces. The aim was poor, but it had a capacity for 70 rounds, and it wasn't bulky. Before he turned around, Milcades spoke again. Use the grasshopper, he ordered. Wyatt paused for a moment in doubt. The grasshopper was issued to nobles, marines, orbital shock troops, and army officers. He was about to protest that the TY-8T was enough for him, but something stopped him. Glancing at the marines present, he noticed they were watching what he was going to do. I'm a noble now, he thought as grabbed the grasshopper. The SMG had a longer barrel and was twice as heavy, but with his new strength, he barely felt the difference. Walking up to his row after grabbing 2 clips of ammunition, he studied the gun closer, noticing it had 2 modes, full auto and burst. Putting it against his shoulder, he aimed and opened fire to test it first. Nodding to himself, he fired again in controlled bursts, hitting the dummy's torso most of the time. When the clip was empty of its 50 bullets, he reloaded and switched to burst mode, quickly finding out that the burst mode fired 5 bullets per round. Again, most of his shots were aimed at the torso, but landed a full burst on the target's head. You have a proclivity to aim for the head, Lieutenant. I approve, Milcades said. Now try a shotgun. But I told you that. Amuse me, Milcades countered. Unable to deny the Royal Marine, Wyatt grabbed a standard shotgun and loaded only 6 shells in it. He aimed and fired. Predictably, he winced even with his newfound upgrades and nearly let go of his weapon. You were not exaggerating, Milcades said, his tone carrying a hint of surprise in it. Forget the shotgun, grab a handgun, use the FVX-35 storm cannon. Again, it was a pistol designed for the exclusive use of nobles, but this time he didn't hesitate. Grabbing it, he picked 2 magazines and wet to his row, and to his surprise, Milcades moved the target back to its maximum distance. Use your eyes! You've been able to avoid focusing on something too much. Now focus on your target intently, said the captain. Wyatt did as ordered and focused on the dummy. After a few seconds of concentration, his vision zoomed in, locking into his target. Somehow, still retaining full control of his peripheral vision and sense of awareness, he loaded the heavy handgun and aimed it. The pistol rang loudly despite the protection of his helmet, but he fired again and again until the 10 bullets were spent. He had to admit the storm cannon was definitely hard to control. The weight of it and its recoil made him flinch and lose his stance the first few shots, but he adapted quickly to it. 8 shots landed on the dummy, with 6 hitting the torso and 2 its head. "Again!" came the command. Wyatt obliged, and this time he did much better, landing 3 shots on the torso and 7 on the head. "Use 2 storm cannons at the same time," came the next command. Again, Wyatt obeyed without delay, and soon he was holding 2 of the elegant but heavy handguns. Aiming again, he fired once, and his shot missed by a wide margin. His stance was off, his balance skewed, and the recoil from both guns knocked his focus out. Retaking his stance, he fired his right first, followed by the left, then the right, and then the left, alternating his shots in quick succession. He adapted to it quickly, managing to control his shots better and not lose his balance and focus. He continued to fire until 10 magazines were spent. "You can stop now, Wyatt Staples. I've learned everything I need to know. You may leave," Milcades ordered, and Wyatt saluted him before leaving, ignoring the Marines that had, for the most part, watched him practice. Alone inside his helmet, Milcades reviewed the score tally he had secretly recorded, and a smile widened across his lips. "Accuracy rating, 92%. Headshot proficiency, 61%. A good marksman? Such a joke," Milcades said to himself. Then he left the range.